You've been told the golden ratio, or phi, is just about pleasing aesthetics, something architects use for visual harmony. That is a lie born of ignorance, or maybe worse. The startling truth is that geometry based on phi is the universal blueprint of life itself. We're talking about a single mathematical constant that defines the swirl of galaxies, the geometry of your face, and the exact mass of the electron at rest. The shocking part? Ancient priests knew it and imprinted it onto some of the most iconic works of art and architecture, hidden in plain sight.
Okay, you might want to buckle up for this one. Forget everything you think you know about. Well, pretty much everything. Randomness, evolution, history.
Yeah, put it aside for a bit, because today we're diving into something pretty radical. It's the idea, based on our sources, that the entire universe, I mean, from the tiniest atom right up to the biggest galaxy, it's not built on chaos. Not at all. It's built on a single, unchanging, you might even say secret, geometric code.
A secret code. I love it already. So we're talking about some fundamental universal law, right? Something the really big brains of antiquity knew about, like Pythagoras, Plato.
Those guys.
Yeah.
And according to the narrative we're exploring, this knowledge wasn't just known, it was used. Yeah. But somehow it got, well, let's say misplaced, concealed even in modern history.
Okay, so we're basically dusting off this lost blueprint, the one that says reality isn't random noise, but actually follows a single rhythmic pattern based on proportion.
That's the mission. We're unpacking this forbidden blueprint, this hidden code that supposedly defines, well, everything. The shape of your own skull, the spiral in a galaxy, even the forces holding atoms together. This is the ultimate deep dive into, the structure of reality itself.
Wow. Okay, no pressure then. We're aiming to connect the dots.
Yep.
From ancient wisdom through geometry all the way to cutting-edge physics.
That's the plan. It's definitely an intellectual journey, and fair warning, it might make you start seeing math everywhere, like everywhere, in places you only ever thought were, just organic or random.
Let's get into it. The forbidden blueprint. Okay, so the big, bold claim. A universal secret hiding in plain sight. You look at nature, right? A sunflower head, the curve of a seashell, maybe an apple.
Or even something man-made, like the Parthenon in Greece.
Right, and they look nice, pleasing. Maybe there are some similarities, spirals here, proportions there. You just think, neat.
But the sources we're looking at say, nope, not neat, not coincidence. This isn't random beauty. It's the invariant. It's evidence of one single mathematical relationship underlying all these forms. Life, structure, cosmology, the whole shebang.
And this one relationship.
Don't tell me.
It is the divine section. Or maybe you know it as the golden section, the golden ratio. Usually written down with the Greek letter phi.
Phi, okay. And the number is roughly 1.618.
That's the one. Yep. Approximately 1.618, and then it goes on forever, non-repeating.
Right. 1.618. It still sounds a bit, math class dusty. Can you ELI 5 this for us? Why is this number supposedly cosmic? Why is it the secret code?
Okay, yeah, let's make it super simple. Imagine you've got a stick, just a plain old stick.
Got it. Stick in hand.
Now, you need to break that stick into two pieces. Not just anywhere, though. You need to find the perfect spot. A smaller piece, let's call it A, and a bigger piece, B.
Okay, break the stick, A and B. Phi is the only ratio, the only breaking point where something amazing happens. Yeah. The ratio of the bigger piece, B, to the entire stick, that's A plus B, is exactly, precisely the same as the ratio of the smaller piece, A to the bigger piece.
Wait, hang on. So B, compared to the whole thing, is the same proportion as A compared to B.
Got it. A plus B over B equals B over A. That specific relationship is phi.
Whoa. Okay, that's like a perfect loop. It's referencing itself. The part relates to the whole in the exact same way the smaller part relates to the larger part. Endless harmony built right in.
That's the core idea. It means anything built using this proportion contains the echo of its own source, its own whole. It's geometrically similar at different scales. And that self-similarity, that embedded resonance, is what the ancients apparently called harmony.
So for Pythagoras, Plato, the Egyptian builders, harmony wasn't just a feeling like, oh, that temple looks nice.
Not at all. It was, according to this view, the actual mathematical fabric of the cosmos, the principle that governs how anything takes form. And yeah, the sources argue pretty strongly that this deep geometric understanding somehow got sidelined, maybe deliberately suppressed, especially after the Enlightenment, replaced by worldviews that were maybe more focused on parts than the whole.
Suppressed knowledge. Okay, that's juicy. But it makes me wonder, how did they even work with this number? I mean, 1.618? it's not like you can easily measure that out with a piece of rope in the desert. What were the tools, the geometric tricks?
Great question. It goes back to something really fundamental, structurally speaking, dichotomy. Just dividing something into two. Simple.
So, right. Seems simple enough.
But the key, the sort of hidden calculator they apparently used, was something called the double square.
The double square, you mean a rectangle, like one side is twice as long as the other, a 1x2 rectangle?
Exactly that. Seems almost boringly simple, doesn't it?
Yeah, a bit underwhelming compared to a cosmic code. Why the double square?
Because within that simple 1.2 rectangle, geometrically, lies the key to unlocking the golden ratio, phi, and all its important mathematical relatives. This is supposedly the big geometric secret the ancient architects knew. You want me to walk you through how? Because this is pretty cool.
Please, yeah, show me the magic trick. How do you get phi out of a basic 1.2 rectangle?
Okay, picture your double square. Let's say the short side is 1 unit, the long side is 2 units. Now, mentally cut it in half, so you have 2 perfect 1x1 squares side by side.
Got it. 2 squares making a rectangle.
Now, draw the diagonal line across just one of those squares, from one corner to the opposite. Using basic geometry, Pythagoras' theorem, the length of that diagonal is the square root of 2. That's our first important number, root 2.
Okay, root 2. Still not phi, though.
Hold on, we're getting there. Now, go back to the full 1x2 rectangle. Yeah. Draw a diagonal across the entire rectangle from one corner to the far opposite corner, the length of that diagonal. That's the square root of 5.
5. Okay, where are we going with this?
Remember the formula for phi. It's often written as 1 plus square root of 5 over 2.
Ah, there it is. The square root of 5 is embedded right in the definition of phi.
Exactly. So just by constructing and understanding the relationships within the simple double square, they had geometric access to the square root of 5. And if you have the square root of 5, you have the core component needed to construct phi.
So they didn't need calculators and decimals. They just needed ropes and pegs to draw it out.
Precisely. Geometric construction is the key. There's another way to visualize it. Find the midpoint of one of the short 1-unit sides of the double square. Draw a line from that midpoint to one of the far corners on the 2-unit side. The length of that line is actually the square root of 5.
Okay.
Now, imagine swinging that line down like a compass arc, extending the short side of the rectangle, the new total length you create along that extended side. That length is phi, 1.618, relative to the original short side being 1.
Wow. Okay. That is clever. So this humble 1.2 rectangle, it's like a geometric Swiss Army knife. It holds the keys to the square root of 5, and ultimately the big one, phi.
That's the idea. It's a geometric matrix, the proportional key. Mm-hmm. It implies that ancient measurement systems, like maybe the Egyptian cubit or other units, they weren't just based on, the length of the pharaoh's arm.
They were based on geometric figures that encoded these fundamental cosmic constants. They were literally building with the math of creation. That changes perspective quite a bit. Okay, so we've got this geometric toolkit centered around the double square and phi. If it works for building pyramids, how does it translate to, building life? How does this geometry shape a seashell or a tree or us? The sources seem to say that how things grow, form building, isn't random.
Exactly. It's presented as a process that unfolds according to these predetermined geometric rules. Mm-hmm. Think about any living thing, an egg, that pectin seashell you mentioned, even an apple. It starts from a single point, right? A seed, an origin cell.
Yeah, a starting point.
And then it expands. It grows out into 3-dimensional space. The crucial insight here, according to these sources, is that this expansion isn't just, poof, it happens. It's governed by 2 fundamental opposing forces or potentials. And crucially, these potentials are described as geometric vectors.
Vectors, like arrows with direction and magnitude. So growth has directionality built in.
Okay, let's get these 2 potentials straight. The sources call them S and U. Think of them as the 2 main characters in the story of growth. Character number 1, S. The singular potential. Singular potential, S, this is the internal blueprint, the deep structure. You can think of it as the organism's genetic heritage. It's structural memory. It represents preservation, stability, unity. It's the force pulling inward, saying, stick to the plan. Stay true to what you are.
Got it. S is the anchor, the core identity. What about U, universal potential?
Universal potential, U. This is the outward push, the energy of expansion, change, multiplicity. It's the dynamic interaction with the environment, the force driving the form outwards, adapting, growing, reaching out.
So S is pulling in, U is pushing out. S is the past, the template. U is the present, the act of growth, the response to the world, like a constant tug of war.
That's a great way to put it, a dynamic tug of war. And the final form, the living shape you actually see, let's call it the resultant vector. R is always the sum, the outcome of this geometric struggle between S and UR equals S plus U, vectorially speaking.
Okay, S plus U, the final shape.
And this fusion of S and U, this geometric dance, is presented as a model for really fundamental biological events. Like, think about the very start of life, the merging of two cells, say maternal and paternal genetic information, into one new entity. The geometry dictates how this happens while ensuring the new life maintains geometric similarity to its origins.
Geometric similarity, meaning it keeps the same proportions, the same underlying shape logic, even as it grows.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's why a nautilus shell keeps adding chambers, but the spiral always looks the same, proportionally. Or why a tree branches out, but the overall branching pattern retains a similar geometric character. The phi ratio, embedded in this S and U dynamic, ensures this continuity of form across scale.
Okay, that makes sense for continuity. But look around. Nature is full of wildly different shapes. Why aren't all eggs perfectly round? Why are some pointy? How does this S and U model explain the variety?
Ah, that's where the balance comes in, or rather the imbalance. The final shape, the symmetry of the object, depends on which potential dominates the tug-of-war.
Okay, so if S wins.
If the singular potential S is dominant, the form prioritizes stability, unity, self-preservation. Minimal surface area for maximum volume, structural integrity. What kind of shape does that sound like?
Ah, sphere. Or something close to it, like a round egg.
Precisely. Like the egg of a water bird, maybe. Needs to be strong, maybe buoyant. Maximum internal protection. Minimal vulnerability to the outside. S dominance leads towards spherical forms.
Makes sense. So what if U wins? If the outward push is stronger?
If the universal potential U dominates, then the form prioritizes expansion, interaction, adaptation to external forces. It accelerates growth, often elongating along a primary axis.
Think about a pointy egg, like from a bird nesting on a cliff ledge so that doesn't roll off easily.
Exactly. The ovoid shape, elongated, more dynamic. It's a form shaped more by its interaction with the world than just its internal blueprint, S. This geometric duality, the shifting balance between S and U, is presented as the engine driving the incredible variety of natural forms.
That's actually a really elegant way to think about biological shapes. Not just random mutations being selected, but outcomes of this fundamental geometric tension. Okay, my mind is officially stretching now. But where does this go next? Consciousness. How can geometry define how we think?
Right. It sounds as a leap, but this is where the concept of geometric consciousness comes in. The sources argue something pretty radical about how our senses, specifically our vision, actually work.
Okay, hit me with it. How does my eye use geometry?
The idea is that your visual system, your retina, the processing bits in your brain, isn't primarily focused on absolute things like how big is that object or what exact color is it. What it's really fundamentally doing is decoding geometric similarity. It's looking for proportional relationships in everything you see.
Wait, hold on. So when I look at a tree, my brain isn't just logging big green thing. It's processing the ratio of the trunk's width to its height, or how the branches relate to the trunk proportionally.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
It's detecting patterns and ratios first and foremost. Think about recognizing someone's face. You know it's them whether they're standing right in front of you or awake across the street, right?
Yeah, of course.
The absolute size on your retina changes massively, but what stays constant? The proportions. The geometric relationship between their eyes, nose, mouth. That underlying geometry is stable. Our brains are apparently masters at picking up on this geometric similarity, abstracting it, recognizing the pattern regardless of the scale.
So, our ability to think abstractly, to see patterns, to reason, it didn't just pop out of nowhere. It grew directly out of our basic biological wiring to perceive geometric proportions.
That's the argument. Our capacity for reason, for abstract thought, is literally built upon this foundation of abstracting geometric similarity, generalizing relationships independent of size. Our thinking is geometric at its core.
My ability to understand phi, or the double square, that's not just some learned academic skill. It's tapping into the brain's native language.
It's tapping into the fundamental operating system. This, according to the sources, is why Plato considered these geometric forms sacred. They weren't just neat ideas. They were reflections of the actual structure of reality, the very templates our minds are designed to perceive and understand.
Okay, that lands heavily. And the sources mention even more direct physical evidence, something about skull overlays.
Yeah, it does sound a bit like phrenology revisited, but the claim is purely about geometric proportions, not bumps on the head predicting personality. The visual data presented is, well, it's striking. Scientists apparently overlaid these fundamental geometric figures, especially derived from phi squared, using ratios involving the golden ratio and irrational numbers, such as the square roots of 2, 3, 5, and 7, onto anatomical drawings and photos of skulls, various species, mammals, birds, and, yes, humans too. And the claim is that the key dimensions, the major structural points of these skulls, align remarkably well with these specific geometric proportions.
So, like the ratio of the skull's height to its width or the distance from the eye socket to the jaw hinge, these follow rules based on phi and the double square.
Exactly. Things like the overall proportion of the cranium brain case versus the facial structure, or the placement of key anatomical landmarks, they consistently seem to reflect geometric constraints like 1, 2, or 1, 1, or 1, 5. It implies that how bones grow, how anatomy develops across different species, isn't entirely random trial and error. It's constrained. It has to follow an underlying biomathematical program. There's an invisible geometric scaffolding guiding development. Evolution works within these mathematical boundaries.
It's like Mother Nature has a set of golden ratio calipers she uses for every blueprint, whether she's designing a bird or a badger or us.
That's the evocative image, yes. And the human connection is obviously key here. The overlays apparently work just as well on human skulls, mapping key features to these proportions. It suggests we're part of this same universal design principle, extending all the way through evolution to modern humans.
A unified structural logic, derived from that simple double square, shaping everything from an eagle's beak to our own forehead. My mind is blown. I think I need a moment to process.
But don't get too comfortable, because we haven't even tackled the biggest puzzle yet. If this geometry is so fundamental to life and even thought, how did the ancients know it so well they could build pyramids with it? And does this code go even deeper? Does it define not just life, but the very stuff life is made of, the atoms themselves?
Ooh, okay, that is the next level question, isn't it? From biology and ancient builders down to the quantum realm, that's the hook right there. We're talking ancient architecture meets atomic physics. You absolutely have to stick around for this next part.
Okay, let's just pause for a second and soak that in. We've journeyed from this idea of a hidden universal code found in the golden ratio phi,
which is itself sneakily hidden inside a simple 1-to-2 rectangle.
Right. And we've seen how this code is argued to be the algorithm writing the script for life itself, dictating how things grow, why a shell spirals just so, why our skulls have the proportions they do, maybe even how we perceive reality.
It really reframes everything, doesn't it? Seeing the world less as a jumble of separate things and more like a vast interconnected web of proportions. Maybe the universe isn't infinitely complex. Maybe it's just incredibly elegant, repeating one core mathematical idea over and over.
It's definitely a perspective shift. And look, if you're finding this as fascinating as we are, if you're hooked on decoding these potential universal secrets and looking at reality through this, frankly, mind-bending geometric lens,
then you know what to do. Smash that like button, definitely subscribe, and hey, consider joining our memberships. Seriously, your support is what lets us keep digging into sources like these and bringing you these deep dives. We literally couldn't do it without you.
Absolutely. Because up next, we're going to show you how the secrets supposedly carved into ancient Egyptian stones might just echo in the fundamental constants of quantum physics.
Yeah, get ready for the pharaohs to meet the fine structure constant. You don't want to miss this. All right, let's bridge the ancient and the modern, starting macro. Architecture. And you can't talk ancient monumental architecture without talking about the Great Pyramids of Giza. Our sources dig into the Egyptian canon, especially from the Old Kingdom, and they argue pretty forcefully that the dimensions there were anything but random.
Far from it. The claim is that the entire construction philosophy was based on applying these geometric proportional relationships, the ones derived straight from the double square. The same figure we fingered is the source of phi. We hear a lot about pi in the pyramids, which is also fascinating, but these sources emphasize that the geometric heart is really phi and related constants like the square root of 5 and phi squared.
So for the builders, the geometry wasn't just about making stable structures that wouldn't fall down. It was seen as what? The actual measure of the cosmos.
That seems to be the implication, that they were encoding cosmic principles into the stone. And how did they do it? How do you bake phi into a mountain of limestone?
Yeah, practically speaking.
Well, one key example often cited is the relationship between the pyramid's height and the length of the side of its square base. If you look at the triangle formed by the slope of the pyramid's face, its height, half the base length, and the slant height, or apothegm.
Okay, picturing that triangle.
The ratio of that slant height to half the base length often comes out incredibly close to phi, 1.618. This specific triangle shape is sometimes called the golden triangle or the Kepler triangle. And it's not just theoretical math. There's physical evidence cited, like an artifact called Hezira's plank, dating way back to maybe 2800 BC. It apparently shows clear use of the golden section and related figures in its design layout. Suggests this wasn't a late invention, but really early fundamental knowledge.
Wow. Okay, so they weren't just measuring cubits, they were embedding cosmic ratios. And this wasn't just an Egyptian thing, right? Which is crucial if it's supposed to be a universal law, not just one culture's bright idea.
Exactly. Fast forward to ancient Greece. Look at the Parthenon, iconic. The Greeks, especially the Platonists and Pythagoreans, are presented as consciously, deliberately applying these harmonic systems. Again, not just because it looked good, though it does, but because they believed objective structural integrity, true measure, could only be achieved if the building resonated with the fundamental mathematical rhythms of nature itself.
And how did they connect it to nature?
Through us. Proportions found all over the Parthenon, like ratios involving 1, root 5 again, and 1.5, are also linked directly to the idealized proportions of the human body, what's sometimes called the anthropometric measure, like Vitruvian Man.
So, wait. The ideal human form reflects phi geometry, and the Greeks built their most sacred temples to reflect the ideal human form, which means they were automatically embedding the universal geometric code into the stone. It's like a perfect harmonic feedback loop.
Beautifully put, a feedback loop encoding harmony. And the evidence trail doesn't stop there. The sources point to examples much further afield, like medieval Russian architecture.
Really?
Yeah, specifically looking at traditional building measures used for centuries, like the sejение. Think of it as a set of measuring rods. The fascinating thing is, detailed analysis apparently shows that the different types of sejение used to build famous churches in places like Kyiv and Novgorod. They weren't just arbitrary lengths.
Don't tell me.
Their lengths and the subdivisions marked on them seem to align perfectly with proportions derived directly from the golden section, Phaigen, and its geometric cousin T2. Things like the great sejение, the small sejение, the slanting sejение. Their relative lengths fit the phi series.
So a standard measuring tool, something a medieval builder would use every day, was actually a physical embodiment of these cosmic ratios.
That's the claim. The sejение wasn't just one length, it was a system. A toolkit that allowed builders to easily scale up these fundamental proportions and year into the dimensions of their buildings. It suggests this knowledge wasn't isolated to Egypt or Greece, but was part of a widespread, sophisticated, maybe even intentionally guarded system based on universal geometric laws, spanning huge distances, different cultures, different times, a hidden canon of construction.
Okay, that's seriously compelling on the macro scale. Ancient builders were apparently fluent in this secret language of proportion. So now, the big jump down to the micro. How does the geometry that shapes a pyramid relate to the structure of a single atom? This feels like where things get really wild.
It is a leap, but the logic follows. If these geometric principles, these S and U symmetries derived from the golden section framework, govern large-scale forms like anatomy and architecture, then consistency demands they should also govern the smallest building blocks of reality. We need to see if these same geometric ideas, dichotomy, harmony through opposing forces, show up in the fundamental constants of physics.
Which brings us inevitably to that number you teased earlier, 137. Physics nerds know this one. Why is 137 such a big deal, such a mystery?
Right. 137, or more precisely, its reciprocal, 1 divided by 137.035999. This is the approximate value of the fine structure constant, usually written as alpha. It's a pure number, no units like meters or seconds, and it basically sets the strength of one of fundamental forces of nature, electromagnetism.
The force that governs light, electricity, magnetism, chemistry, pretty much everything we interact with.
Exactly. It dictates how charged particles like electrons interact with photons, how light interacts with matter. It determines the speed limit for electrons orbiting an atomic nucleus. And here's the kicker. If this number, roughly 1137, were just slightly different, atoms wouldn't be stable, chemistry wouldn't work, stars wouldn't shine the way they do, life as we understand it couldn't exist.
So it's this incredibly crucial number holding the universe together, and physicists basically look at it and go, okay. Why that number? It seems totally arbitrary, plucked out of thin air.
It's often called the most fundamental unexplained number in physics, a cosmic coincidence of unbelievable luck. But the sources we're exploring propose something else entirely. They suggest it's not a coincidence. It has a geometric origin.
A geometric origin for 100 How?
The geometric models discussed in these texts, the ones built on reconciling those opposing S and U potentials, the stability versus change dynamic, often involving symmetries related to shapes like icosahedrons and dodecahedrons, which are absolutely packed with phi ratios.
Okay.
These models suggest that the fine structure constant, this magic number 137, is mathematically intimately linked to. Guess what?
It's got to be phi.
That's right. And also, interestingly, the square root of 3, another key geometric player, often related to hexagonal tetrahedral structures. The argument is that 137 isn't arbitrary. It emerges necessarily from the geometric requirements of harmonizing these fundamental dualities within the structure of space matter itself.
Wait, how can a ratio from a seashell connect to the strength of electromagnetism? What's the mechanism? How does the geometry force the number 137?
Okay, think back to S and U stability S versus change interaction. At the quantum level, you have forces that hold things together, like the strong nuclear force keeping protons glued, stability S-like. And you have forces that govern interactions, like electromagnetism, allowing electrons to orbit and interact, change U-like.
Right, binding forces versus interaction forces.
The golden ratio, phi, is the ultimate mathematical expression of harmonizing opposites while maintaining self-similarity. The geometric models propose that for the structure space-time and elementary particles to be stable and allow for dynamic interaction, these opposing tendencies, S and U, strong force, and electromagnetism, must relate to each other via a specific constant of proportionality.
And that constant turns out to be related to 137.
Precisely. The fine structure constant emerges as the necessary tuning knob required by the geometry to keep the quantum world both stable and dynamic. It's the mathematical consequence of applying the principle of harmonic law, phi, to the fundamental forces. It ensures geometric self-similarity holds even at that tiny scale.
That's absolutely staggering. If true, it means phi isn't just a pattern we observe. It's like a fundamental law, a numerical requirement baked into the fabric of reality from the quantum level up.
And we can push it even further into what the sources might call atomic architecture. The idea is that the elementary particles themselves, protons, neutrons, electrons, aren't just little balls. Their very properties are defined by these geometric dualities, the S and U symmetries, rooted in the golden section structure.
So like the proton, heavy, stable at the center of the atom, that embodies the singular potential S, the stable blueprint.
That's the kind of analogy used. It represents the internal stable core.
And the electron light buzzing around, constantly interacting, that's the universal potential, the outward changing force.
Exactly. Their properties, mass, charge, spin, aren't random attributes. They're seen as geometrically defined expressions of this fundamental tension between stability and change, unity and multiplicity, all orchestrated by the continuous proportional logic of phi. Space matter itself is structured by these geometric ratios. The universal geometric law, harmony, isn't just describing things, it's the algorithm generating them.
Okay. From the pyramids to the Parthenon to the Russian measuring rods down to the electrons dance dictated by 137, it's the same geometric signature showing up everywhere. It really does feel like uncovering a hidden matrix.
Right. We have covered an unbelievable amount of ground. We've gone from ancient Egypt to quantum physics, across millennia, across vast scales, all seemingly tied together by this one geometric principle, phi. So let's try to synthesize this. What's the underlying philosophical engine driving this whole system? What's the core law?
The sources often point to something they might term the universal law of identity of opposites. It's an old idea, really. You find echoes of it in ancient philosophers like Heraclitus, who famously said something like, the hidden harmony is better than the obvious one.
The hidden harmony.
Yeah. The idea is that true harmony, the kind that allows for a dynamic, evolving universe, isn't about everything being the same, uniform. It's about the necessary coexistence and the perfect proportional reconciliation of opposites. It's about balanced tension, not flatness.
The ultimate cosmic balancing act.
A mathematical dialectic, maybe?
You could definitely frame it that way. In biology, we saw it as the tension between identity, the S potential, preserving the form, and difference, the potential driving change and adaptation.
Right, stay the same versus become different.
And in physics, it translates to the fundamental relationship between stability, think rest, mass, structure, S-like, and change. Think motion, energy, interaction, U-like. According to this view, even concepts like Einstein's relativity, space and time, matter and energy are expressions of these fundamental geometric dualities playing out.
So without this constant interplay, this tension resolved by a specific ratio, the whole system just falls apart. Like if change totally won, everything dissolves into chaos.
Exactly. Or if stability totally won, everything freezes. Nothing happens, nothing evolves. So the fundamental law of form building, the thing that allows complexity and evolution, has to be this paradoxical identity of opposites.
How can something be stable and changing simultaneously?
Through proportion. The biomathematical program, as the sources term it, is the underlying structural logic, the algorithm, that guarantees dynamic evolution, multiplicity, U, while simultaneously preserving the wholeness and integrity of the system, unity, S. And the golden section, phi, is identified as the mathematical constant that makes this possible.
Because it's the only ratio where the parts relate to the whole in that perfectly self-similar way, allowing growth without losing the original pattern.
Precisely. Think of that logarithmic spiral again, the nautilus shell. It grows continuously outwards, change, U, but its overall shape, its proportional identity, remains absolutely constant, stability S. Phi is the mathematical key that unlocks that simultaneous stability and growth.
It's really beautiful, actually, seeing ancient geometric intuition and modern physics maybe pointing towards the exact same deep reality.
That's the power of the synthesis presented here. It suggests a unification we often miss.
Okay, let's wrap this incredible journey up. What's the single biggest takeaway? If someone listening remembers only one thing from this deep dive, what should it be?
I think it has to be that the golden section, a 1.618, is proposed not just as an interesting pattern, but as the fundamental invariant of the universe's construction process. It's the core rule in the cosmic algorithm, ensuring that the harmony and structure of the whole is reflected mathematically in every single part.
And the most mind-bending consequence of realizing this hidden geometric matrix exists.
It's the implication that reality is, well, vastly more ordered, profoundly interconnected, and based on a rigorous mathematical elegance than our standard models might suggest. Seeing potential links between how our own eyes decode shapes, the structure of our skulls, the precise dimensions of the Great Pyramid, and even the fundamental constants governing atoms. It just shatters the idea of a disconnected random universe.
It paints a picture of unity. Macro, micro, life, physics, all singing from the same geometric hymn sheet.
And it reframes ancient wisdom. Maybe the knowledge used by those civilizations wasn't just superstition or early guesswork. Maybe it was a deep, mathematically precise understanding of cosmic harmony, the actual operating principles of creation. They weren't just stacking stones, they were aligning with the universe's fundamental structure.
They weren't worshiping statues made of gold. Maybe they were revering the golden ratio itself.
They understood the underlying score, the sheet music for the symphony of existence, and they tried to build their world in tune with it, knowing that strength, beauty, and maybe even consciousness itself arises from reflecting the proportional wholeness of the entire composition, and that composition's key signature seems to be Fivi.
Wow, okay. My brain feels geometrically rearranged. It certainly gives you a new respect for ratios. But here's the final thought to leave you with. If this geometric program, this mathematical blueprint, is truly imprinted on everything, living things, non-living things, from a grain of sand to the edge of space-time,
then what does that really imply about how things came to be? Does it lean more towards an inherent logic, maybe even a type of design woven into the fabric of reality, rather than just pure, unguided chance, a cosmic accident?
That's a heavy question to ponder. And if we can fully decode these geometric algorithms, which these sources passionately argue is possible, maybe by revisiting these ancient principles of proportion and harmony, what could we do with that knowledge?
Imagine architecture designed not just for function, but for genuine harmonic resonance, maybe even promoting well-being, new approaches to energy generation, maybe tapping into the universe's structural frequencies, or perhaps finally getting a real handle on the geometric underpinnings of consciousness, health, life itself.
We've seen the argument that geometry is the key to unlocking life, physics, thought. If the ancients harnessed it to build wonders, what are we missing today by not exploring it more deeply?
The potential seems enormous. We might just be scratching the surface.
So here's your challenge, your call to action. Start looking. Really look at the world around you. Look for the double square in designs. Look for the spirals, the proportional rhythms, the echo of the divine section. It's hiding in plain sight, remember. In a fern, a pineapple, a staircase, the facade of a building. You've got the decoder ring now.
Yeah, try seeing the universe, not just as stuff happening randomly, but maybe as this incredibly precise, interconnected, geometric dance, all unfolding according to perhaps the most elegant mathematical idea ever conceived.
Let us know what you find. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the geometric code, please do check out our other episodes, and definitely like, subscribe, join the memberships. It helps us keep these explorations going.
Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring,
and keep digging.